What is up YouTube, and welcome to this Lovecraft Country Season 1 Ending Explained video, which ended with episode 10 Full Circle. It was a great end to the season, with the season itself only really making sense right up until the very end, and despite this being the most straightforward episode so far, it has left us in a very different position than we were at the end of the book. There will be spoilers in this video, so please be warned before we dive in. And if you enjoyed the video, please do consider leaving a like down below and subscribing with notifications on if you want more from us, as we cover all things on television, and we'll be covering The Mandalorian when it airs as well. So after last week's episode, which explained a hell of a lot, we got even more backstory here as the group return from the observatory and their trips to the timeline. They have the Book of Names and prepare to save Diana from the horrible curse she was put on by Lancaster. However, Atticus starts to free Dee from the curse, only for the Book of Names to open, and it lands on a page that has his birthmark on it. This is the one that we found on his cousin a couple of episodes ago, and runs throughout his family. He starts to read from this page and is pushed into the Burning Lodge flashback we have seen so many times. But this turns out to be an ancestral realm, as the same also happens to Letty, but she is with the ancestor of Atticus, Hattie, that we also saw last episode. I was a bit confused at first, but then it made sense as she is in this ancestral plane. Of course, she has the child of Atticus, which is of course a descendant of Hannah. Now, Hannah, Atticus's ancestor, created this plane of existence for their family unknowingly when she opened the Book of Names and realised now that magic is supposed to be a gift to be passed on, and that Tick will actually save them all. At first, she thought it was the rage inside her, but it's an interesting way of passing on knowledge, and I really did like this. It had some roots in history and different cultures around the world of how knowledge is passed on, and most notably, you will know that from the Black Panther when we have that ancestral plane as well. Now, Hattie and Letty are practicing a spell that manages to save Diana, but sadly one of her arms is destroyed. However, she will later get a bionic arm, which will be shown off screen, which was a real shame. I'd have liked to see her reaction to that, considering, of course, she is so into the sci-fi lore and knowledge. It would be an absolute dream come true for her. As her arm has been destroyed, she gets something very, very cool. It decides now that they need to use the Book of Names to destroy Christina, with Montrose being against it, as Tick will die in the process, but Tick says it's only one potential outcome, mentioning how he changed the past last episode, being the mystery bat wielder. And of course, this is the huge change of Atticus. He's been running his whole life, even running to join the war, but his destiny has always been to die, and this is something he has now accepted because it does save his family. So Letty and Tick go to the museum from episodes ago and resurrect different people, and I do think that the native person that we had in that museum, I don't know why they decided to not show her that much or have her die very soon. It was a shame, but I understand it from a story aspect, but there was a lot more story to tell there. But the most notable person they revive using the resurrection spell is Titus Braithwaite, the man who really started this all, and Tix takes a part of his body, as this will allow him to be resurrected later after his inevitable death. Of course, this was foreshadowing because we saw Titus Braithwaite be able to actually move around the city there, if albeit briefly, and cause the crash of Christina and Ruby. Now, this is what Tick meant by his death only being one of the outcomes, as the visions of GR in the Meet Me in Daegu episode are just something that will happen, but there's nothing after. Now, Hippolyta also returned as well and offered the crew some help, and returned to her daughter, who is upset that she's been left while Hippolyta ran off and lived so many lifetimes. But Hippolyta wanted to return to her and has learnt so much knowledge, all in the kind of aim to protect her daughter. After this, Christina knows that they all have the book and attempts to cut a deal, and she says that she will not harm Atticus's family. If she gets the book, she will learn a way to become immortal without actually using part of her family's blood or any of her family, and he doesn't believe that and tells her, to jog on. I mean, I wouldn't believe her either, and she takes away the invulnerability of Letty, something we'll play in later. Now, Tick goes to meet Gia and makes amends and explains that their destinies are now intertwined forever. And I thought it was interesting that she offered a man sex just before this if he's willing to die, a callback to her luring men to their death in Korea. Her mother has died and Gia is now destined to carry on, and she's got the curse over her still, of course, and Atticus wants to get her on side to help him, as they're going to need some different magics, and of course I think that they will go on through next season and hopefully explore different type of magic from different cultures. We finally learn why Letty didn't go to her mother's funeral, and it's because she was in jail and that Letty only wants to be her sister when she wants something, which is very, very true and very true here. And it's called back to the first episode, and she's now pushed Ruby even more into the snares of Christina Braithwaite once more as they start to get it on, and Ruby turns up as they're preparing to go to Ardham and hands Letty a vial of blood, which is what she wanted. However, this is actually Christina in Ruby's body, having killed her, as the relationship becomes clear that Christina was also self-serving, and while she mentioned she would never fit in a man's world, well, she was always self-serving. There's always that white hierarchy, which is so unfortunately prevalent in this world. They need to connect Atticus, Christina and Titus Braithwaite's bodies all together so they can save everyone, and I feel that the magic was very under-explained, as Tick starts to eat the skin and drinks the blood that was given to him by Ruby, but it's really Christina for her own gain. But we find out later it's not from a Braithwaite's blood. Now, they form a salt circle and start to get to work, only for the villagers to turn up and capture the rest of his squad and himself. They strap him up into the circle device, which was again seen in the vision, as Ruby Christina kills Letty once more. Atticus is tied and his arms are slashed, and she starts to take his power for his own good, as Letty is returned with the protective mark. However, she must have got this from the Ruby Christina, as she made a promise not to hurt the child. And of course, the child is valuable to have magical properties. However, there's also the idea that she probably got the protection spell again from Hattie in the spiritual plane as they worked together to try and bring her back from the dead. Yeah, it's a bit off there. So much happens off screen, it's really hard to keep up at times. Now, enraged, she goes to stab Christina in the torso, but Christina has reached her final form. But the blood used didn't come from her Braithwaite veins, like I said, and GR needs to use her magic and use her powers to connect Atticus and Christina together, which is what they do. And after some visions, Christina is trapped, and it turns out they were able to take magic from every white person in the world, which is a big thing and a great metaphor for taking back the power from the oppressors. But sadly, Atticus is still dead, as Tick delivered a letter in the past. In one of the visions, we see that to Hippolyta, who then gives it to Montrose, asking for him to look after his son. Christina is seemingly still alive, as she's just left under the rubble, and I find it odd they didn't really go for the kill shot. However, Diana, while this was all going on, has managed to, I would say, take control of a Shoggoth, and she's returned with her robot arm and pet Shoggoth, which is black as opposed to the others, and kills Christina with her arm. A lot of people are on Reddit very angry about that, but of course, she has managed to, or at least been complicit in the death of the girl's father, her uncle, and it's just a total shame that this has happened. And I have to say that it kind of makes sense that she would do this. Now, the ending was different to the book when the Mark of Cain was changed on Caleb, the show version of Christina, which simply prevented magic being used, and they drop Caleb off in Indiana and drive away and go off on their road trip. However, let's not forget that the book of Lovecraft Country was found in the show and written by George, and this was indeed given to him, or at least given to Atticus, by Diana in the past, and so that is absolutely crazy. This means that time travel is on the cards, and even travel across multiple dimensions. as I think that Diana will work out a way to bring back her father and live a life that she wants. This allows the show to carry on with an anthology-style story like the showrunners want, and continue on this theme of cyclical violence and oppression. Now, overall, I did like the series, and then they really did nail the landing, but it was an incredibly uneven show, with writing not being clear at times, and the main plot being so up in the air. It had a tough time to wonder, what is the end goal of this? Who are we stopping, and things like that, and it did kind of get a bit off the rails quite a lot of the time, but it was a fun journey, and this was a road trip, so the journey is what it's all about. However, that is it for this video. Please drop a like down below. Please do subscribe with notifications on, and I'll see you soon, and goodbye.